Authorized police records. Factual video evidence. Raw enforcement. This is Bodycam incident reports.
Marcus, step away from the truck, now! Hands where I can see them!
Paying customer, officer, I'm checking my oil.
Don't argue with me, ID, right now!
You're escalating nothing into something.
Wallet, slowly, keep those hands visible.
All right, here.
Thank you. Just hang tight.
I told you I'm just checking the oil.
We'll sort it out.
Trent Weaver, the 28-year-old clerk at the Pump and Go on the corner of Elm and Main, hung up the phone and wiped his sweaty palms on his jeans. Through the grease-smeared glass of the station window, he watched the man at Pump 4. The man was not casing the store. He was not looking for cameras. He was Master Sergeant Marcus Thorne, United States Marine Corps, retired. At 52 years old, Thorne still carried himself with the ramrod posture of a man who had spent 3 decades waking up before the sun. He wore a crisp polo shirt tucked into khaki trousers, a leather belt, and sensible walking shoes. He was checking the oil on his 2018 Ford F-150, a routine he performed every Tuesday morning with religious precision. It was 10:15 a.m. on a bright, sunny Tuesday in October. The autumn air was crisp, the sky a piercing blue, a beautiful day for a drive. Marcus had just filled his tank. He had paid at the pump with his credit card. He wasn't loitering. He was maintaining his vehicle. He pulled the dipstick, wiped it clean with a rag he kept in his back pocket, and reinserted it. His movements slow and deliberate. He had no idea that inside the station, Trent Weaver had decided that a black man checking his engine was a prelude to a robbery. Trent had been working at the station for 6 months. He spent most of his shifts scrolling through social media on his phone, reading conspiracy theories and watching videos of street fights. He considered himself a vigilant citizen, the first line of defense against the chaos he was sure was coming to his quiet suburb. When he saw Marcus' broad-shouldered, bald head gleaming in the sun face set in a look of intense concentration, Trent didn't see a customer ensuring his truck was road-ready. He saw a threat. He saw a suspicious character. He saw a stereotype his internet feeds had told him to fear. "He's still there," Trent muttered to himself, peeking through the blinds. He hadn't seen Marcus swipe his card. He hadn't noticed the receipt printing. He only saw a black man occupying space he didn't think he should occupy. Trent felt a surge of adrenaline. He was doing the right thing. He was protecting the store. He was being a hero. Outside, Marcus frowned slightly at the dipstick. The oil was a little low. He reached into the truck bed, grabbed a quart of 5W30 and unscrewed the cap. He began to pour his hand steady. He was humming a tune under his breath, thinking about the fishing trip he was planning for the weekend. He had served 5 combat tours. He had led men through the streets of Fallujah and the mountains of Afghanistan. He had retired with a Silver Star and a Purple Heart. He was a deacon at his church and a contractor for the Department of Defense, holding a security clearance higher than the mayor of the city. But none of that was visible to Trent Weaver, and none of it would matter to the officer speeding toward them. Do you think employees should be required to verify a customer isn't conducting business before calling the police? Officer Kyle Miller was 2 miles away when the call came over the radio. "Dispatch to 4 Adam. Suspicious person at the Pump and Go on Elm. Complainant states male subject loitering, possibly casing the location." Miller hit his lights, cut a U-turn across 2 lanes of traffic, and floored the accelerator. "4 Adam, show me en route." He barked into the radio. A tight smile played on his lips. This was exactly what he needed. Kyle Miller was 29 years old and had been with the department for 4 years. In that short time, he had built a reputation. To his buddies in the locker room, he was a hard charger, a cop who didn't take nonsense and knew how to clear the streets. To the Internal Affairs Division, he was a liability in waiting. He had 9 complaints in his file. 9. Most were for discourtesy, 2 for excessive force, and nearly all involved interactions with minority men. He had a philosophy, one he shared loudly at the bar after shifts. You have to dominate the space. If you give them an inch, they take a mile. You go in hard, you establish control, and you sort it out later. It was a philosophy that had earned him 3 suspensions, all brief, all overturned by the union. He felt untouchable. He believed that the people complaining were just soft, that the civilians didn't understand the war he was fighting every day. As he sped toward the gas station, Miller's mind was already writing the report. Subject loitering, refused commands, resisting. He visualized the suspect before he even saw him. In Miller's mind, suspicious person at a gas station meant a drug dealer or a vagrant. It didn't matter that the neighborhood was middle class. It didn't matter that it was broad daylight. Miller was looking for action. He was bored with traffic stops and noise complaints. He wanted an arrest. He wanted to put someone in cuffs. His dashboard computer flashed the details, but Miller barely glanced at them. He didn't care about the specifics. The clerk was scared. That was probable cause enough in his book. He turned off his siren as he approached, wanting to catch the guy by surprise. He swung the patrol cruiser into the pump-and-go lot tires, crunching on the gravel entry, and pulled up aggressively, blocking the front of the F-150. He saw the man, large build, black male, hood up, standing by the engine, doing maintenance, or pretending to Miller decided it was a ruse. Nobody stands at a gas pump for 15 minutes just checking oil. This guy was stalling, watching the clerk, waiting for the right moment to strike. Miller unbuckled his seatbelt and shoved his door open. He didn't adjust his hat. He didn't check his surroundings. He marched forward, hand resting on the grip of his holstered sidearm chest, puffed out ready to dominate. He didn't see a retired master sergeant. He didn't see a paying customer. He saw a target. "Hey!" Miller shouted, his voice booming across the empty lot. "Step away from the vehicle now." He watched the man slowly turn his head. The man didn't jump. He didn't run. He didn't look scared. He looked annoyed. And that annoyance, that lack of immediate submission, made Officer Miller's blood boil. This was the disrespect he hated. This was the attitude that needed to be corrected. Miller quickened his pace, closing the distance, ready to escalate a routine oil check into a life-altering catastrophe. Marcus Thorne had heard the tires crunch on the asphalt, but he hadn't looked up immediately. He was finishing the pour, ensuring not a single drop of oil hit his engine block. Precision matters. When the shout came, "Step away from the vehicle, now!" Marcus capped the oil bottle, set it down on the truck's radiator support, and turned slowly. He saw a young officer, maybe late 20s, storming toward him with a gait that screamed aggression. Marcus knew the type. He had trained thousands of young men. He knew the difference between confidence and arrogance, between a soldier ready for duty and a hothead looking for a fight. This officer was the latter. "Good morning, officer." Marcus said, his voice a deep, calm baritone that had commanded platoons in the worst hellholes on earth. "Is there a problem?" "I said step away from the vehicle," Miller yelled, stopping 10 feet away, his hand still hovering near his gun. "Get your hands where I can see them." Marcus held up his hands, revealing the oil rag in his right. He didn't raise them in surrender. He raised them to show they were empty, a casual, non-threatening gesture. "I'm checking my oil, son. My hands are dirty." "Don't call me son," Miller snapped. "We got a call about suspicious activity, loitering, casing the store. What are you doing here?" Marcus looked at the officer, really looked at him. He saw the name tag, K. Miller. He saw the tense shoulders, the vein pulsing in the neck. Fear masked as aggression, Marcus analyzed. Dangerous. "I just bought a tank of gas, Officer Miller," Marcus said, keeping his tone even. He gestured with his chin toward the pump screen. "Receipt is right there. I decided to check my levels before I got back on the highway. I'm not loitering. I'm a customer." "The clerk says you've been here 20 minutes staring at the store," Miller countered, moving closer, invading Marcus's personal space. "You trying to figure out if he's alone? You planning something?" Marcus chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "I was looking at the store because I was debating buying a coffee, but I decided to check the engine first. If checking your oil is a crime in this city, you'd better arrest half the mechanics in town. Don't get smart with me. Miller warned, pointing a finger in Marcus's face. I'm asking you questions. You answer them. You don't ask me anything. You don't give me attitude. You understand? I understand you're escalating a situation that doesn't exist. Marcus said, his military bearing taking over. He stood at parade rest now, feet shoulder-width apart, hands clasped loosely in front of him, holding the rag. I have broken no laws. I have paid for my goods. I am on private property conducting legitimate business. If the clerk is uncomfortable, I'll finish up and leave. But you need to lower your voice. That was the wrong thing to say. In Kyle Miller's world, a suspect giving orders to an officer was the ultimate sin. It challenged his authority. It challenged his manhood. I tell you what to do, Miller shouted, spit flying from his lips. You don't tell me a damn thing, you're detained. You hear me, detained. I want ID. Now. Am I under arrest? Marcus asked quietly. You're under investigation for loitering and disorderly conduct. Miller lied, grasping for a charge. ID. Now. I don't have to provide ID unless I'm suspected of a crime, Marcus stated, knowing the law better than the man enforcing it. Loitering requires intent. I have a receipt. That proves I'm a customer. I'm happy to show you the receipt, but I'm not giving you my ID for a fishing expedition. Miller's face turned a mottled red. He wasn't used to people knowing the law. He was used to fear. He was used to submission. This man's calm was infuriating. It felt like mockery. You're refusing a lawful order, Miller hissed, stepping within striking distance. I'm asserting my Fourth Amendment rights, Marcus corrected him. I served 25 years in the Marine Corps to defend those rights, officer. I'm not going to waive them because you're having a bad morning. The mention of military service seemed to trigger something ugly in Miller. He sneered. Oh, you're a Marine. Let me guess, Special Forces, classified missions. I hear that crap from every bum I pick up. Stolen valor is a crime too, buddy. Marcus stiffened. His eyes went cold. He had buried friends. He had bled for his country. To have this child with a badge question his honor was a bridge too far. But he maintained his discipline. He didn't shout. He didn't clench his fists. He simply stared at Miller with a look of profound disappointment. You are making a mistake, Marcus said softly. The only mistake is you thinking you can run this show, Miller said. He reached for his radio. Dispatch, send me a backup unit. I have a non-compliant subject. Resistance is escalating. There was no resistance. There was only a black man standing by his truck and a white officer inventing a conflict. Across the street, a woman walking her dog stopped. She pulled out her phone. A man filling up at the next island over did the same. The cameras were rolling. The audience was assembling, but Miller was too blinded by his own bias to see them. How do you handle situations where authority figures escalate conflict instead of resolving it? Share your experiences below. Turn around, Miller commanded, unclipping the handcuffs from his belt. The metallic ratchet sound seemed loud in the quiet morning air. Officer, I am not resisting, Marcus said, his voice rising slightly so the witnesses could hear. He saw the phones pointing at them. He knew the drill. Narrate the interaction. Protect yourself. I am asking you to articulate the crime I have committed. I said turn around. Miller didn't wait for compliance. He lunged forward, grabbing Marcus's left wrist. Marcus didn't pull away. He didn't fight back. He knew that any movement could be interpreted as assault on an officer, and Miller was looking for an excuse to use his baton or worse. Marcus allowed his arm to be taken, his muscles loose, but his stance firm. I am complying, Marcus announced clearly. I am not resisting. Everyone watch this. I am complying. Miller wasn't satisfied with the compliance. He wanted submission. He yanked Marcus's arm up high behind his back, utilizing a joint lock designed to inflict pain. It was a control hold meant for violent offenders, not a 52-year-old man standing still. Marcus winced as his rotator cuff, scarred from an IED blast in 2004, screamed in protest. That is unnecessary force, he gritted out through clenched teeth. I have a shoulder injury. You are hurting me. Stop resisting then, Miller shouted, playing to a non-existent audience that would support him. He grabbed the other arm and wrenched it back. I am not resisting. Marcus strained. Miller slapped the cuffs on. Click, click. He squeezed them tight, deliberately tight. The metal bit into Marcus's wrists, pinching the skin and cutting off circulation. Miller gave a final shove, pushing Marcus against the side of the truck. The retired Marine's face pressed against the warm metal of his own vehicle. You want to play lawyer? Miller panted, adrenaline coursing through him. You can play lawyer in the cell. You're under arrest. For what? A voice called out. Miller whipped his head around. The man at the next pump, a guy in a suit, was filming. Back off, Miller yelled. This is an active investigation. Interfere and you're next. I'm 30 feet away, the witness yelled back. I'm not interfering. I'm asking what he did. He was just checking his oil. He's trespassing, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest. Miller listed the charges as he searched Marcus's pockets without consent. He pulled out the wallet. He pulled out the keys. He threw them on the hood of the truck. You have no probable cause to search me. Marcus said, his face still pressed against the truck. Search incident to arrest. Miller smirked. I can search whatever I want now. He patted down Marcus's legs roughly, aggressively. He spun Marcus around. Spread your legs. Marcus complied. He looked Miller in the eye. The officer's pupils were dilated. He was high on power. You have just violated my civil rights, Marcus said, his voice deadly calm. You have arrested a federal contractor and a retired senior non-commissioned officer without cause. There are cameras everywhere. I don't care who you think you are, Miller spat. You're just another guy who doesn't know how to listen. Miller grabbed Marcus by the bicep and marched him toward the patrol car. Marcus walked with dignity, head high, despite the pain in his shoulder and the biting steel on his wrists. He didn't stumble. He didn't beg. He marched as if he were being escorted to a ceremony, not a jail cell. As they reached the car, Miller opened the back door. Get in. Marcus maneuvered his large frame into the cramped back seat. It wasn't easy with his hands cuffed behind him. Miller didn't help. He just watched, waiting for a slip-up. When Marcus was finally in, Miller slammed the door hard, shaking the vehicle. Miller walked back to the truck, grabbed Marcus's keys and wallet from the hood and tossed them onto the passenger seat of his cruiser. He looked at the clerk Trent, who was watching from the window with a look of pale shock. Trent had wanted the guy gone. He hadn't expected a full-blown arrest with witnesses screaming. Trent gave a weak thumbs up. Miller nodded, feeling vindicated. He had protected the community. He got into the driver's seat and started the engine. He glanced in the rearview mirror at Marcus. Comfortable, Miller taunted. Marcus stared out the window at the gas station at his truck left abandoned at the pump. Officer Miller, he said, I want you to remember this moment, because this is the last time you will ever make an arrest. Miller laughed. It was a loud, genuine laugh. Yeah, okay, tough guy. We'll see what the judge says. He pulled out of the lot, tires screeching slightly. He had no idea that the video taken by the man in the suit was already uploading to Twitter. He had no idea that the hashtag Marine arrested was about to trend. He thought he had won. The drive to the precinct was only 15 minutes, but the silence in the car was heavy enough to crush bone. Officer Miller turned on the radio, blasting a classic rock station, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. He was riding the high. He felt energized. He had taken down a threat. In the back seat, Marcus Thorne was performing a tactical assessment. He focused on his breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. He needed to keep his heart rate down. The pain in his shoulder was a throbbing fire radiating down to his fingertips, which were beginning to numb from the tight cuffs. But pain was an old friend. He could manage pain. What he had to manage now was the anger. He looked at the back of Miller's head. He saw the close-cropped haircut, the thick neck. He saw a man who had been given a gun and a badge, but no wisdom. Marcus felt a strange pity for him. Miller was destroying his own life and didn't even know it. "Officer," Marcus spoke, his voice cutting through the guitar solo on the radio, "I am requesting that you contact your watch commander immediately upon arrival. I want a supervisor present before I am booked." Miller glanced in the mirror, eyes narrowing. "You don't make requests. You get what you get. You'll see the booking sergeant. That's it." "You accused me of stolen valor," Marcus said. "You claimed my service was a lie. When we get to the station, you're going to open that wallet you threw in the front seat. You're going to see a blue ID card. That is a Department of Defense retired identification. You're going to see a CAC card, a common access card with a green stripe. That's for a contractor. You're going to realize that I work for the same government you do, only at a much higher pay grade." Miller turned the radio up. "I don't care about your fake IDs, buddy. You can print anything off the internet these days." "Ignorance is not a defense," Marcus said, raising his voice slightly to be heard over the music. "You have failed to verify. You have failed to investigate. You have operated entirely on bias. I'm giving you a chance to fix this before you process me. Call your lieutenant." "Shut up," Miller shouted. "You have the right to remain silent, so use it." Marcus leaned back against the hard plastic seat. He had tried. He had offered the young man a lifeline, a chance to mitigate the disaster. Miller had slapped it away. So be it, Marcus thought. Let the chips fall. The cruiser rolled through the city streets. People were going about their Tuesday morning, walking dogs, buying groceries, rushing to meetings. They looked at the passing police car and saw law and order. They didn't see the crime being committed inside it. Miller pulled into the precinct sally port, the heavy metal gate rolling up with a clatter. He parked in the designated spot and killed the engine. The silence rushed back in. "End of the line," Miller said cheerfully. He got out and opened the back door. He grabbed Marcus's arm again, roughly pulling him out. Marcus's legs were stiff, but he found his footing instantly. "Walk," Miller commanded. They walked through the secure doors, down the gray hallway that smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. Miller was parading his catch. He nodded to a passing officer. "Got a live one. Disorderly at the pump and go." The other officer glanced at Marcus, at the expensive polo, the military haircut, the calm demeanor, and frowned slightly. "Disorderly. Yeah, refused to ID, resisting," Miller said dismissively, pushing Marcus forward. They reached the booking desk. Behind the high counter sat Sergeant Thomas Henderson. Henderson was 55, a 30-year veteran who had seen it all. He was 2 months from retirement. He had bad knees and a low tolerance for foolishness. He looked up from his computer as Miller shoved Marcus toward the bench. "What do we have, Miller?" Henderson asked, his voice gravelly. "Trespassing, loitering, resisting failure to ID." Miller recited the laundry list. "Suspect refused to leave a gas station. Clerk called it in. Suspect became belligerent." Henderson looked at Marcus. He looked at the handcuffs. He looked at the face of the man standing before him. Henderson had served in the Army in the late 80s. He recognized something. It was the stance, the eyes. "Belligerent?" Henderson asked, looking back at Miller. "He looks pretty calm to me." "He was running his mouth," Miller said. "Claiming he's a Marine, claiming he's a Fed, the usual bullshit." Marcus spoke then. "Sergeant, my name is Master Sergeant Marcus Thorne, USMC retired. My wallet is in Officer Miller's possession. I would appreciate it if you would examine it." Henderson's eyes widened slightly. He looked at Miller. "Give me the wallet." "Sarge, it's just, give me the damn wallet, Kyle," Henderson snapped. Miller rolled his eyes and tossed the wallet onto the counter. Henderson opened it. The room went very quiet. Sergeant Henderson stared at the contents of the leather wallet. First, the driver's license. Marcus Aurelius Thorne. Date of birth, 1973. Valid. No warrants. Second, the blue card. United States Uniformed Services, ID card, retired, grade E8. Third, the CAC card, Department of Defense, contractor, clearance level top secret/SCI. Fourth, a folded piece of paper tucked in the back, a small copy of a citation, Silver Star. Henderson felt a cold pit open in his stomach. He looked up at Miller, who was leaning against the wall, looking bored and self-satisfied. Then he looked at Marcus Thorne, who was standing with his hands cuffed behind his back, waiting patiently. "Miller," Henderson said, his voice dropping to a whisper that was scarier than any shout. "Unlock these cuffs. Right. Now." Miller blinked. "What, Sarge? He—" "Unlock him," Henderson roared, standing up so fast his chair rolled back and hit the wall. "Do it now." The entire booking room froze. Two other officers stopped what they were doing. Miller looked confused, his arrogance faltering for the first time. "Sarge, I arrested him for—" "You arrested a master sergeant with a TS clearance for checking his oil." Henderson threw the wallet on the desk. "You idiot! Do you have any idea what you've done?" Miller fumbled for his keys. His hands were shaking now. He approached Marcus. "Turn around," he mumbled. "I can't turn around, officer," Marcus said calmly. "You have me pressed against the bench." Miller unlocked the cuffs. Marcus brought his hands forward. His wrists were deeply indented, the skin broken in two places, blood trickling down his thumb. His hands were purple. "Medical," Henderson shouted to the room. "Get a medic in here now." Henderson came around the desk. He didn't look like a cop anymore. He looked like a panicked man trying to stop a dam from bursting. "Master Sergeant Thorne," he said, extending a hand but then pulling it back, realizing how insulting a handshake would be right now. I cannot apologize enough. There has been a terrible mistake." Marcus rubbed his wrists, grimacing as the circulation returned with stinging pain. "The mistake was Officer Miller's sergeant, but the responsibility is the department's." I know. Henderson was sweating. "Officer Miller, surrender your badge and gun." Miller's jaw dropped. "What? For what I followed procedure. He was loitering." "You profiled a customer," Henderson said, his face red with anger. "I heard the radio call. Suspicious person. You didn't verify anything. You didn't check with the clerk upon arrival. You went in hot. And you mocked his service." Henderson picked up the military ID. "You called this fake. He didn't show it to me." Miller lied. "I offered to show it," Marcus corrected. "You told me you didn't care if I was the president. You said, and I quote, 'Stolen valor is a crime too, buddy.'" Henderson closed his eyes. He knew exactly how bad this was. "Go into the captain's office, Miller. Sit down. Don't touch anything. Don't speak to anyone." Miller stripped his belt off, slamming it onto the desk. He glared at Marcus. "You set me up," he muttered. "I existed," Marcus replied. "You did the rest." As Miller stormed off, the captain burst into the room. Captain Reynolds was a sharp woman in her 40s. She had her phone in her hand. Her face was pale. "Henderson tell me we didn't just arrest the man in the video on Twitter," she said, holding up the screen. It was the video from the gas station. It had 50,000 views. It had been posted 20 minutes ago. The caption read, "Racist cop assaults black veteran for fixing his car. Hashtag police brutality, hashtag veterans." Henderson pointed to Marcus. "Captain, this is Master Sergeant Thorne." Captain Reynolds looked at Marcus at his bleeding wrists, at the oil stain on his shirt from being shoved against the truck. She looked at the IDs on the desk. She looked at the floor. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling, "we are going to release you immediately. We will drive you back to your vehicle. We will have your truck towed to a dealership for a full check at our expense. We will—" "Captain," Marcus interrupted, "I appreciate the ride back to my truck, but as for the rest—" My lawyer will be in touch." The silence that followed was the sound of careers ending and budgets breaking. Why do you think officers often double down on mistakes rather than admitting them in the moment? The fallout was swift, brutal, and public. By the time Marcus got back to his truck driven by a silent and terrified Captain Reynolds, the news vans were already at the gas station. The video was everywhere. It showed the contrast perfectly. It showed Marcus standing calmly explaining he was checking his oil. It showed Miller screaming, escalating, and finally attacking. It showed the stolen valor comment, which struck a nerve with every veteran in the country. The internet detectives went to work. Within 2 hours, Trent Weaver's identity was leaked. The Pump and Go corporate headquarters was flooded with thousands of calls. By 2:00 p.m., the company issued a statement. "We are appalled by the events at our Elm Street location. Discrimination has no place in our business. The employee involved has been terminated effective immediately, and we are reviewing our training protocols." Trent Weaver, who had wanted to be a hero, was now unemployed and receiving death threats. He deleted his social media, but the screenshots of his racist posts from months prior were already circulating. But the real heat was on the police department. The next morning, Marcus Thorne held a press conference. He stood on the steps of the courthouse, his arm in a sling rotator cuff, strain confirmed. Beside him was his lawyer, a sharp-eyed civil rights attorney named David Ross. "I spent 25 years fighting for this country," Marcus said into the microphone. He didn't yell. He spoke with the quiet dignity that had terrified Sergeant Henderson. "I fought for the right of every American to be free from tyranny. Yesterday I faced tyranny in my own neighborhood. I was handcuffed for being a black man in a nice truck. I was mocked for my service by a man who has never sacrificed anything but his own integrity." He paused, looking directly into the cameras. "Officer Miller decided I was a criminal before he got out of his car. He decided my ID was fake because it didn't fit his worldview. If this can happen to me, a master sergeant, a homeowner, a grandfather, what happens to the young man who doesn't have my rank? What happens to the person who doesn't have the discipline to remain calm while being assaulted? They end up dead, and that is why we are suing." The city didn't want a trial. They knew a jury would destroy them. The evidence was overwhelming. The body cam footage released 3 days later was even worse than the bystander video. It captured the audio perfectly. It captured the sneer in Miller's voice. It captured the "stolen valor" comment in high definition. Officer Kyle Miller was placed on unpaid leave. The police union, usually quick to defend their own, went silent. Defending a cop who mocked a decorated veteran and arrested him for checking oil was a losing battle. But the community wasn't done. Protests erupted outside the precinct. Signs reading, "Respect our vets and checking oil is not a crime," filled the streets. The mayor, facing an election year, threw Miller to the wolves. "We have zero tolerance for bias-based policing," the mayor announced. "Officer Miller's actions do not reflect our values." It was a lie, of course. Miller's actions reflected the values of a system that had kept him employed through 9 previous complaints. But now the cost was too high to keep him. 6 months later, the settlement was finalized. The city council voted unanimously to approve a payout of $1.6 million to Marcus Thorne. It was one of the largest settlements in the city's history for a non-fatal arrest. Officer Kyle Miller was fired. But it didn't stop there. Because of the high-profile nature of the case and the clear violation of civil rights, the state licensing board revoked his certification. He would never be a police officer again. His name was added to the National Decertification Index. At 29, his career in law enforcement was over. He was last heard of working security at a warehouse in a different state, earning minimum wage, far away from the power he had abused. Trent Weaver, the clerk, moved back in with his parents. He couldn't find work in the city. His face was too known, his reputation too toxic. Marcus Thorne took the money, but he didn't buy a new car or a big house. He started a legal defense fund for veterans of color who had been targeted by police. He used his pain to build a shield for others. On a Tuesday morning 1 year after the arrest, Marcus pulled his truck into the same pump and go. It was under new management now. The staff had been retrained. He got out. He popped the hood. He pulled the dipstick. A police cruiser drove by. The officer inside, a rookie, slowed down. He looked at Marcus. Marcus looked back. The officer nodded respectfully and drove on. It was a small victory. But as Marcus wiped the oil from his hands, he felt a lingering sadness. He looked at his reflection in the truck window. He saw the gray in his beard. He saw the silver star lapel pin on his jacket. He realized that his uniform, his medals, his rank, none of it had been enough to protect him from the initial assumption of guilt. To Kyle Miller, he hadn't been a Marine. He had just been a suspect. The settlement was justice, yes, but true justice would have been the ability to check his oil without fear in the first place. Money fixes the bank account. It punishes the city. But it doesn't fix the heart. It doesn't erase the memory of the cuffs, the humiliation of being stripped of your dignity on the side of the road while a boy half your age laughs at you. We have to ask ourselves, why do we live in a society where a black man needs to be a war hero just to be believed? Why does it take a viral video and a master sergeant's ID to get an apology? What about the plumber, the teacher, the student who faces this same bias but has no medals to show? Until we answer those questions, until we demand a system that respects humanity before credentials, the next Marcus Thorne is just one 911 call away. If this story moved you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about justice and accountability. Have you ever been judged by your appearance? Let me know in the comments below.
The precise records of our past hold the essential narratives that define our present reality. To deeply understand these narratives is to search for the absolute truth. Thank you for sharing in our steadfast commitment to uncover what truly happened.